And thanks. I will first ask Rebecca to start.
Okay. The question I have in front of me, and I haven't had enough time to think of a very good answer, but I'll try my best to give some anecdotes. The question is, regarding the billions of US dollars available for climate change initiatives, I guess, how may these funds be accessed by the poor developing nations when the priority is meeting basic needs? It's a very good question because number one, there is not sufficient, as I said before, not sufficient funds available to meet those basic needs, especially in relation to climate change. And of course, these countries are already faced with tremendous amount of human development, environmental challenges. And what we were seeing among reporting back from aid agencies is that climate change is only exacerbating the existing problems. And basically reversing a lot of the gains that have been made at the national level toward gender equality, environmental sustainability, and those kinds of things. So I'm not sure if I can answer exactly the question, but I will provide one anecdote related to an outcome of the Bali meeting at the end of last year. I mentioned earlier that the Adaptation Fund is a new fund that was agreed to actually quite a long time ago, like several years ago. It has not come into implementation until just recently. In the Bali meeting last year, there was one of the most controversial issues, the Adaptation Fund was. And the reason is because most of the funds that are related to climate change and environment have been managed by the Global Environment Facility. And one of the outstanding things that happened in the Bali meeting was that developing countries stood together and requested and actually really fought for a more democratic governance system for climate change money, especially related to adaptation or under this fund. And what they did was succeed in doing that and in that fight. The agreement in Bali was that now the Adaptation Fund is going to be going forward. It will receive, I believe, 2% of the Clean Development Mechanism, 2% off of the money of the Clean Development Mechanism, so carbon offset projects. Money from those projects will go into this fund for developing countries for adaptation. And what's going to happen because of the fight from these developing countries at this negotiation, there was a committee of governments, including developing countries, that was agreed to and that to replace the Global Environment Facility as the place where the decisions are made. Technically, at the moment, temporarily, the Global Environment Facility is still facilitating the Adaptation Fund, but in the near term, they're supposed to transfer that over to a steering committee. So this is a very technical discussion, but the fact is that developing countries just recently are starting to take back the decision-making over some of these monies. And I'm hoping that in the next couple years, as the cycle continues and adaptation has now become a prominent discussion point, that will continue to happen. So hopefully that is some progress toward this question of accessing money. The last thing I'll say is that in my mind, the climate change debate is just another wave that we can ride on the road to gender equality. Most people on the ground are not talking about climate change. When you go talk to women's organizations, when I've talked to them in the last 3 or 4 years, they're not responding to, let's work on climate change. Because for many, many years, they've been working on water, they've been working on agriculture, we're working on forestry, energy. Those issues are climate change. So if you've worked on any of those things, you actually are already doing things toward that. So meeting basic needs has been really a priority for gender equality for many years, so hopefully that will move forward.
Thank you, Rebecca. And I will pass on the microphone to Hannah. Can you please repeat the question and then provide your answer? Yes.
There was a question on sea level rise impacts in Goa. And, well, first of all, I think it would be important to take into account these global projections in all local planning and all policy making and planning. But because all adaptation options are very much ecosystem specific and also even community specific, it would be best to try to downscale the global projections to local level and then analyze what are the impacts on the local communities and different sectors, and then be able to do more targeted policy planning. And actually the same question, the same kind of question was also for Southern Africa, that what policy options would there be for Southern Africa? It is also okay, like Southern Africa is projected to face droughts, serious droughts, and this will have serious implications in agricultural production. So promoting resilient agricultural systems and that would be a solution, but it would be even better to do these projections to get to a more local level and then to more targeted policy planning. But if we don't have this data available, we can always promote in all activities or all initiatives to be as resilient as possible. For example, in the coastal zones, to promote resilient housing and conserve the ecosystems that help buffering the impacts of the sea level rise. And in Southern Africa, in the agricultural, promote resilient systems. I don't know if my colleagues have something to add.
Thank you, Hannah. And may I ask Lorena to continue?
Okay, I have 4 questions in front of me. I'll try to be very precise. For the person that was interested on climate change and MDGs, I think a good starting point is to look at the last Human Development Report from UNDP. You will find extremely good data about the impact that climate change is having in the achievement of the MDG. The other question is, why are we only focusing on DRR and not the M as well? I think, as far as I know, people from ISDR can tell me if I am wrong, is we're following the Hyogo Framework for Action, and within DRR, DM is included, correct? So that's the reason that we're focusing on DRR and the 5 steps for its achievement. If there any compiled information on indigenous knowledge for coping strategies exhibited or practiced by women during and after environmental disasters, yes, there are. There are various websites, and I will be willing, for example, we do have a website that is called Gender and Environment, and you can find some of the studies there. Then there is a network of women, indigenous and biodiversity, in which you can also find some of the case studies in relation to coping strategies. In relation to this question, it says we have a strong knowledge base. How do we move fast toward practical legislative agenda? Well, first, we need committed politicians who are willing to take this into their parliaments. And we just come from 2 days. We met with some parliamentarians from all around the world. Some of our colleagues are here. I see one from Costa Rica, and I saw one from Jordan. And I think Senator Lagarde is going to share with you some of the ideas that they have come up on how to raise this issue of climate change within the parliaments and within the senates.